Okay, I think we'll go ahead and do our welcomes and a little bit of housekeeping, and we'll continue to admit everyone as they join in. Again, a big welcome to everyone for joining us for our inaugural Power Lunch. This is Series 1, Women Who Power Lunch, Episode 1, Dietary Supplement Safety. We are planning on an hour for our session, but please feel free to leave as you need to. The session is going to be recorded and will be available on our Taylor Hooton Foundation YouTube channel. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions, please feel free to include those in the chat. We'll be monitoring those and make certain that your questions get answered. Our guests are available to stay a little bit after. So we want to make sure everyone's questions do get answered. If for some reason we are not able to get to every question, we'll make sure to send out show notes that include answers to those questions or get back to you directly. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our Taylor Hooton Foundation staff who will be helping with any technical issues or any questions that you might have. As you have those, please, again, submit those in the chat, and our Taylor Hooton account will respond back to you with any assistance that we can provide. So I'd first like to introduce Brian Parker, whose name shows up as Taylor Hooton. He is our Director of Education, so he oversees all of our educational programs that we deliver. I'd also like to introduce Tavis Piattoly, who is our Education Program Manager and Sports Dietitian. And you will also be hearing more from Tavis in just a little bit. And then lastly, we have our President, Donald Hooton. So for those who are not aware, the Taylor Hooton Foundation was formed in 2004 in memory of Taylor Hooton. He was a high school senior from Plano, Texas, who took his own life after using anabolic steroids. Today, we are considered the leader in educating youth and adult influencers on the truths about appearance and performance enhancing substances, including anabolic steroids, human growth hormone, dietary supplements, and energy drinks. The dietary supplement industry is an ever-evolving and ever-growing industry. Roughly half of Americans report taking some form of vitamin or mineral supplement. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Tavis Piattoly, who's going to provide a little bit of a general overview for you on dietary supplements. Tavis.
Hey, thanks, Amy. It's an honor to be here. Thank you guys for attending our first Power Lunch. And it's great to see a lot of names and colleagues that I know. So really honored that you guys joined. So just a little bit of overview about the dietary supplement industry. What is a dietary supplement? This is a big industry, but some people can be really confused about what is considered a dietary supplement. So this could be anything from a vitamin, whether we're talking about vitamin A, D, E, K, simple vitamins that we take, minerals like magnesium, calcium, zinc, iron, but as well as herbs, botanicals, as well as amino acids, protein powders, things like sports nutrition products like creatine. These are all considered a dietary supplement. If it has a supplement facts panel, then it's actually considered a dietary supplement. Now, as Amy mentioned, this is a big industry. There's probably close to 60,000 products on the market. It's an industry that can be very confusing. There's also a lot of misinformation being presented with false label claims. But at the same time, there are good players in the industry. We do want to make sure people realize we're not an anti-supplement company. There are places that have good evidence to support. And as a sports dietitian, I've used certain types of ingredients and supplements with athletes over the years, especially third-party tested products by NSF. John will talk about that, as we get through this program. So it's not that supplements can't be used, but we have to look at the industry in itself. You want to know how are these things made? I was fortunate to launch a supplement brand for a hospital system right around 2013. And during that time, I learned a lot about the industry. I've visited facilities. I've seen the raw materials. I've seen how these products are made. And this was actually a facility in Arizona that was an NSF GMP facility and an NSF athletic banned substance. So what does that mean? Because you have manufacturing facilities. This is where the dietary supplements are actually made. They're made in a manufacturing facility by the good players. And sometimes there's bad players that use manufacturing facilities that allow any type of ingredient in a facility. But the good players, They also go through certifications. They have what's called the NSF certified GMP, which means they have good manufacturing practices. They handle their products. They store their raw materials in the right place. They do everything they're supposed to do to ensure that their products are safe. But also, if they carry the NSF athletic banned substances, that means that facility does not allow any banned substances in their facility. So they do have great manufacturing facilities out there that make these products. You also have those players, in some cases, are making these products in their home. Here in Louisiana, there was a guy that was making dietary supplements in his home. He was using raw materials that were on the banned substance list and some were illegal. So those are the things that I know we have to be cautious about, and why we have incidences that happen where people ingest products that could be life-threatening and very dangerous. So with over 60,000 products on the market and over 50% of the US consumers using dietary supplements and vitamins, we have to be very cautious, because we know the average consumer doesn't really understand ingredients, raw materials, third-party testing, and also really the science behind a lot of this. I see a lot of this with consumers just picking up products and trying to figure out what's good for them, what brands are good, what raw materials are good. So it can be, and there's not like, let's go to this website and here's all the answers to help us solve those problems. That's why we have education programs. That's why we're continuing to educate on this process, because it can be pretty confusing. A lot of our education programs are done in front of young individuals, 14 to 24-year-old athletes, and they're the ones that are still very new to this industry, trying to figure out what their body's even doing. Understanding nutrition is a big challenge for a lot of these individuals. But most importantly, they're trying to solve a problem and think, well, if I just take something, it's a shortcut to success, and that's going to help me get there faster. And then they don't understand, what they're putting in their body, and it could be very, very dangerous if they consume too much, or even if they consume too little, especially with some sort of, abnormality they may have. So this is an industry we have to be very cautious. We have to follow the rules, and we have to use trusted sources that are third-party tested by NSF to ensure our safety and make sure that we, make the right decisions. But also, we can improve our health if we use the right types of products. So the dietary supplement industry can be good if we do the right things, but we also have to take a lot of precaution, because unlike pharmaceutical drugs, which go through extensive clinical testing before they are released for consumption, the dietary supplement industry does not do that. The manufacturing facility is required to make sure that these products are safe before they get to a finished product line. So this can be, something that we can use in the right time, but we have to be very cautious overall when using these products.
Okay, thank you so much, Tavis. Tavis will be available also at the end for any questions that you may have. Again, just put those up in the chat and we'll make sure to get those to you, get to those, at the end. So what Tavis just talked about is an example of what we might discuss during an ALMI assembly. One of our ALMI assemblies is our education programs that we deliver in middle schools, high schools, colleges, universities, for moms groups, professional organizations, young men's service leagues, and other community organizations. So if it would be something you'd be interested in having one of our programs brought in to educate your youth or adult influencers, feel free to visit our website, taylorhooton.org, or send us an email at info@taylorhooton.org for more information. So on to our next part of the program, which is our interview. And I will be interviewing our two special guests. I am Amy Wagner, Director of Marketing and Development for the Taylor Hooton Foundation. And our two special guests are Leanne Sparling, who has a very important story to share. This may be the first time you're hearing her story, but I promise you it is one that will stay with you. And then we have John Tavis with Certified for Sport, NSF Certified for Sport. He's the technical leader for NSF International Dietary Supplement Programs. Welcome, John and Leanne, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Hi, folks. Thanks. I'm really delighted to be here.
So, Leanne, we're going to start with you. You have a very powerful story that you will be sharing with us about your family's experience with dietary supplements. But first, could you please tell us a little bit about your son, Michael?
Oh, Michael is my oldest son. He's one of 4 children in our family. Growing up, he was my rebel child, and he loved sports. He played soccer. He played football. When he was in high school, he was a snowboarder. He absolutely loved the snow, loved going up there with his friends to snowboard. He had a large heart. He loved his family dearly. He loved his friends. He would give you the shirt off his back. I remember times that I had gotten so sick. He brought me home in his car, made sure I got into bed, and he stayed in his room so he could hear me if I needed anything. His baby sister, we adopted from China, and she was the light of his life. I mean, he was so thrilled to have a baby sister. He loved his little brothers. He would play video games with them. Cody, who was next in line as far as age, they became best friends and would stay up hours just talking about life and what they wanted to do with the rest of their life. And what Michael wanted to do was he wanted to go into the military. And when he came to me in high school and was talking to me about the military, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be that mom. I love our military. I support them highly, but I didn't think that I could be a military mom. And so out of respect, he waited until he got a little older to where I really had no control. And at 21, he joined the Army, and he absolutely loved it. And he would be there today if he was with us.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about Michael. What a wonderful young man. I know that tomorrow is a very special day, as it would have been Michael's 32nd birthday, and we are so touched to be a part of honoring and remembering him today. So thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about the phone call that you received on June 1st, 2011, and what had transpired that day?
Well, it was a Wednesday. Normal morning, I was getting ready and the kids were still in bed. Mike had left for work a couple hours before. And as a parent, a mom, a dad, I just had a feeling that something wasn't right. And I didn't have my cell phone with me. And so I went into the kitchen, picked up my cell phone, and saw that I had missed a call from Fort Bliss, Texas. And I went, oh my gosh, I just missed a call from Michael. How could I do that? And then I thought, well, wait a minute, why isn't he calling me from his cell phone? And I'm like, well, maybe he didn't have it. And so there was a message left, and I listened to the message, and it was Michael's captain stating that I needed to call right away, that Michael had collapsed. Gave me the phone number to call. I called the number thinking, maybe Michael had broken an ankle or something like that. I just didn't realize what was happening, truly happening at the time. And his captain was on the phone, and I told him who I was, and he said, ma'am, I need you to speak to the commander of the hospital. And I'm like, okay. And the commander got on the phone and said, ma'am, your son has collapsed. And I said, okay, so what is going on? He says, well, it appears that he has suffered a heart attack. And so I took a step back for a moment and I said, what do you mean? And he goes, ma'am, is there anybody there with you? Is there anybody else in the house with you? And I said, I'm his mother, and you will tell me what is going on with my son. He says, well, he has had a heart attack, and I need to know if he is taking anything, and I mean anything at all. Well, Michael had just gotten out of boot camp. The boy wasn't taking anything. He wasn't doing drugs. He wasn't drinking, excessively, anything like that. The only thing that he had started taking was a supplement called Jack 3D. So I told the doctor this, and he put me on hold for a moment and then got back on the line. And I said, doctor, can you please let Michael know that I'm going to get on the next plane? I'm going to be out there in a few hours, and just let him know that his mama's coming. And at that time, he says, ma'am, you don't understand what I'm saying to you. We are performing CPR on your son as we speak. I said, "Sir, are you telling me that my son's going to die?" He says, "Ma'am, you need to pray." I dropped to my knees and I prayed to God to take me instead of my boy. I called my husband home. My then 18-year-old son and 12-year-old son was up wanting to know what was going on. My 5-year-old daughter was confused. And I called back. It was 11:30 Texas time. And the doctor on the phone, the commander in tears, said, "Ma'am, we did everything we could do for your son, but your son passed away at 11:17 this morning." And my immediate reaction was, "What the hell do you mean he is dead? He is 22 years old. He just finished boot camp. He's as healthy as he could possibly be. I don't understand how you're telling me my son is dead." I found out shortly after Michael's passing, we went to the base. And I can guarantee you, there's not a mom or dad out there that will ever want to see what I saw when I walked into a room and saw my healthy 22-year-old son laying stiff in a black bag on a cement slab. And now I got to figure out how I'm going to tell my 2 youngest children that they're never going to see their big brother again. So at Michael's funeral, I vowed to find out what happened to him and to work as best as I can to make them held accountable for doing what they did to the consumers, meaning Michael. We miss him every day. There's not a day that goes by that we don't miss Michael. The love that he had for us, the love that we had for him, there's just not a day that goes by that we don't think of him and honor him.
Leanne, again, so sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing your story that brings awareness. Can you share with us a little bit about what you did find out as far as the product that Michael took?
So when we met with the commander, he had done a study on, and I can never say it correctly, but it's called rhabdomyolysis. And correct me for whoever can actually say that. What he was explaining to me was the supplement that Michael took appeared to be burning him from the inside out. So when Michael collapsed, they noticed that he wasn't sweating. They put him into an air-conditioned room. They iced him down. When he arrived at the hospital, which the hospital was on base, his body core temperature was 105.5. The doctor thinks that his body core temperature probably was in upwards of 109, 110. He was on a 3.5-mile run in the early morning. Michael was used to running 10 miles with his brother. So the run was just nothing for him. And so that was the conclusion of the doctor. The doctor felt that it was the supplement that he was taking. One, it dehydrated him because that's one of the side effects. It dehydrated him. And the chemical that was in it was basically burning him from the inside out. It caused him to have a heart attack. It caused him to have a heat stroke. It shut down every organ in his body. They worked on him for approximately 3.5 hours. They were able to start his heart 3 times. And they had every unit in that hospital just trading off, going in, seeing what they could do, running fluids through him. And there was just nothing they could do to save him because it was too late at that point. And it happened just like that. Now, this is a healthy 22-year-old soldier that just got out of boot camp. You know, there are no supplements allowed. They can't even drink caffeine at boot camp.
And where did Michael purchase the supplement?
Michael purchased the supplement at GNC. The first time he was told by a friend at boot camp who happened to work at GNC a few years prior about Jack 3D, and that it would help him bulk up. And that's what Michael wanted. Michael, out of the three boys, was really the smallest. He stood about 5'10", 5'11", and when he entered the military, he weighed in at 145 pounds. His two brothers, they stand 6 foot, 6'1", over 200 pounds. And he felt that as a soldier, he needed to be bigger, stronger. And that was his goal.
So it was something that he purchased over the counter, not prescribed.
Correct. He purchased it. The first time he purchased it was here at home. As soon as he got out of boot camp, he did purchase it here at home. And then he purchased it again on the base because, of course, all bases have GNCs on their properties. And
was he aware that that particular substance was in the product?
No. You know, Michael just took it from a friend, you know, that worked at GNC, thought that he knew what he was talking about. And I have to, you know, I feel bad for the friend because, you know, they teach these kids, these kids, and I'm going to say kids that work at GNC to sell the product, not to know what the product is for or what's in the product. They're just there to sell. And one other story I'd like to throw out there is I had gone to the GNC store with a reporter from the New York Times, and I questioned the clerk that was on, and he must have been maybe 17, possibly 18 years of age. And I said, you know, I'm overweight and I'm really looking for a product that will help me lose weight. And I said, and I heard of a product, you know, I think it was called Jack 3D. And he goes, oh yes, we have that product. It's the #1 selling product that we have. And he took me over there and he showed it to me and he goes, hey, if you really want to lose weight, this is what you need to do. You need to stack them. And I said, stack them? What's stack them? And he goes, you take the Jack 3D and you take the Oxy Elite Pro at the same time, and the weight will drop off. And that's what they're taught to sell.
So the ingredient that you specifically talk about, was that on the label?
Yeah, DMAA, it was on the label, but it is labeled as a natural ingredient derived from geranium plant. And it was proven that you can't get enough of this out of a geranium plant to make one supplement, let alone billions of bottles.
So obviously very sorry for your loss and your tragedy. What are some things that you wish Michael would have known about dietary supplements before taking them?
Well, I wish Michael would have trust in what he had learned at basic training. You know, he learned a lot about health and fitness just during basic training, what to eat, what not to eat. Again, he was 145 pounds going into the military. When he graduated basic training, he was 165 pounds. So he had gained, you know, 20 pounds without using any supplements at all. You know, he just did what he was told to do, which was to eat and exercise. That's it. And it helped him bulk up just by doing those two things. And I feel it's the same with weight loss. You know, does the supplement really help, or is the changes that you have actually made by eating better, because it's all hand in hand? You eat better, you exercise. Is it really that supplement you're taking, or is it that you're eating better and you're exercising?
Thank you again for sharing your story. We're going to switch gears and talk a little bit to John to give us a little more background about the supplements and how we can make safer decisions when choosing dietary supplements, what to look for, maybe what not to look for. And, you know, John, I'm going to start out with including myself. People are typically very surprised to learn that dietary supplements sold over the counter could contain a banned or harmful substance. Firstly, can you share with everyone what the term banned substance means?
You know, we we talked about this earlier, and that everyone has this image that pops into their mind when you hear the word banned. And everyone has a different idea of what that means. So in the context of what we're going to talk about, I'm going to define it as substances that are prohibited for use in the world of sports. So things like anabolic steroids, things like stimulants, amphetamine. So we got amphetamine for stimulants. You have things like testosterone for steroids. And there are other classes of compounds too, but those are two of the most famous ones. But within those classes of substances, there are also a lot of lesser known ones that have ended up in supplements over the years too.
What are some examples of a banned substance?
Well, two of them there. So even then, so for instance, I've been working at NSF for a long time now, and I remember the day, well, around the time when this all had occurred in the military, we had a relationship with some folks at the Department of Defense, and they actually had called us and asked us to do some testing on the Jack product to actually let them know what we found in it and what was in there. And we did, and we did find a significant amount of DMA in there, probably more than you could find in all the geranium plants in China, if you want to say something like that. I mean, there was an awful lot of it based upon what was purported to be found in a geranium plant. So yeah, it's supplements themselves. It's what I think what I need to say here is that there, as Tavis has said, there are good players, but there are some brands and there's some manufacturers that operate in the gray of the supplement industry. The supplement industry is a post-market regulation thing, in that supplements are assumed to be safe by and large. A lot of them have history and tradition of safe use, but there are some folks that use that to their advantage to create products that are potentially unsafe and untested with ingredients in them that have no safe track record of use. And they use that post-market surveillance system to get these supplements out on the market, despite all these shortcomings for those ingredients. And then they allow the market to actually a tragedy like this to occur before the regulators can take any action against the supplements.
And based on your research, about what percentage of dietary supplements contain, one or more of these substances or a banned substance?
I mean, we've done what I would call a significant amount of research, but Tavis was saying in his prelude to all this that there are over 60,000 products, and even that is such a wild guess. We really don't know. Through our research, we've looked at fewer than 100 products that have 4, 5, or 6 different ingredients that could potentially be harmful. We know that there are a lot more. Every day, FDA is sending out bulletins from their tainted supplement database talking about whether it's an anabolic steroid, whether it's a drug like a PD5 inhibitor they're using in sexual enhancement products. It could be sibutramine in a weight loss product. But every day those bulletins are coming out. So in reality, we really don't have a good idea of how large a problem is, because I think if we combined all the testing labs in the world, and if you think about that, let's say we have 400 testing labs in the world. I do not think that the testing labs could keep up with the demand to test all the products to that level to ensure that these products don't have ingredients in them that are unsafe.
So how is that possible? Meaning having a banned substance, how is that allowed, or what type of regulation oversight is present in the world of dietary supplements, especially to your point that they can't all be tested? So what other oversight or regulation is out there and available?
Yeah, so I think the common misnomer is that the supplement industry is not regulated. It does have regulations. It's just more of, like I said, the post-market regulation, where initially they're assumed safe, and by and large, greater majority of manufacturers are trying to do the right thing. They're making quality products. They're going through, whether it's the NSF program and even NSF certified for sport, or even some of our competitors' programs. By and large, most of the brands are doing it. But I think there is, again, a small minority segment industry that really could care less about regulations, and their sole interest is in making money and selling products, whether those products are safe. And how they sell products is they will put, could be active pharmaceuticals, could be anabolic steroid if they're marketing the product towards somebody who wants to bulk up. Could be sibutramine, which was the drug Meridia, which was removed from the market by the FDA because of increased risk of cardiac events, even cardiac infarctions, which is a heart attack. So they put these ingredients in the products, knowing that, yes, these will have drug-like effects, and people consume those products will experience those effects, and it will cause them to want to buy more of that product. So that's how they bring things in. And I guess as a consumer, when you see claims on these products, like it's going to allow you to lose 50 pounds of weight, it's going to allow you to bulk up and put 50 pounds of muscle on. I mean, in my mind, the more outrageous the claim, the more caution you should exhibit when purchasing that product, because those outlandish claims require a lot of evidence behind them. And you would find, if you just dug a little bit, that there's actually no evidence behind the ingredients in that product that would be doing that. And potentially there are unlisted ingredients in that product that could cause harm to you as a consumer.
Thank you for that overview, John. Leanne, I'm going to come back to you. So did you learn anything new or any additional action taken regarding the companies that were involved with the product that Michael took?
Yes, the one thing I want to point out about USP Labs, they were in it for the money, no matter what. I mean, there were emails going back, actually laughing that Michael and two other soldiers had died. And when FDA and the government, entities started coming down on them, emails went back and forth, sell, 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 get as much for it as you possibly can, get rid of it. And that's what we're dealing with companies like them. And I am a believer in some supplements, but it's these bad apples that give them all a bad name. USP Labs were forced to go out of business, and they were fined. I know that the attorneys that we were working with, Ann Andrews, John Thornton, and Sean Higgins, they were successful in helping them get out of business. There were several victims that survived, but now have lifelong disabilities. And they worked very hard on the consumer side, as well as the other attorneys, like Patrick Runkle and John De La Garza. All of them worked very hard on making this particular company go away. My son and I, Chris, went to the sentencing hearings for Jonathan Doyle and Jacoba Geisler in October. Jacoba, which they call Jacob, he received 5 years in prison along with a fine, and he'll be on probation and will no longer be able to do anything in the supplement field. I want to say 10 years, but I could be incorrect on that number. Jonathan Doyle received 2 years in prison. He was extremely remorseful. I did see a change in Jonathan that I did not see in Jacob. And I don't believe that we'll be seeing him in the supplement field forever. I think he's pretty well done with it, is my hope. But yeah, they're no longer in business. GNC filed bankruptcy. The one thing that I want to say is we need to be very concerned, because they were sold to a company out of China. And that's exactly where USP Labs received the ingredient to put into their supplements.
I know that those actions certainly will not undo what happened to Michael, but do you feel that justice was served? And I know you touched a little bit about this, but anything additional that maybe has changed because of the awareness about that?
Well, as I explained to the judge at the time, is somebody needs to protect the consumer. And because I know there's some regulation. I don't believe that there's enough regulation out there on supplements, and to be able to order things from another country and make it in your kitchen and slap a pretty label on it and be able to sell it before we know if it's safe, that's wrong. And the consumers don't know that. I had no idea that they were finding rat poison, prescription drugs, in supplements because they use those items as fillers. Had no idea that was going on. When Michael told me that he purchased the supplement from GNC, my immediate reaction was, oh, okay, well, then it must be safe because you bought it from GNC, and everybody knows GNC is a safe company. I had no idea. And I'm hoping with what is continuing to happen that, maybe somebody will step up and, put out there a bill for more regulation. I don't know. I truly appreciate the Taylor Hooton Foundation in bringing this to light, because it is a problem, as a mom, as a parent, as a dad. I know my husband and I were always concerned of, gosh, when our kids get to that age, we've got to worry about drugs and alcohol. And how are we going to deal with it when that age comes? Well, no, folks, we've got to now worry about what supplement are they taking? Are they drinking energy drinks? Are they, what are they putting in their bodies besides possibly, street drugs? There's so much more we have to worry about. And I can only pray that there's going to be more regulations down the road.
Well, speaking of protecting the consumer, we are very happy to share with everyone that there is a resource to help to navigate dietary supplements. John, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about NSF, International Certified for Sport, and what NSF does.
So NSF, we are a third-party certification company. So what that means is we have standards of quality and safety for dietary supplements. We have two of them. So one is our product certification. And within that product certification, we actually visit the facilities and inspect them. I like to say inspect, audit. It's the same thing. We're in the facility. We're examining how they manufacture the supplements. So we're in there checking for their batch records, making sure their personnel are properly trained. They have guidelines for cleanliness in the facility. They have all the documentation for where they purchase raw materials, how they identify raw materials, and what those raw materials are, and tracking for all of those things within their systems to ensure that these are all mandated within the regulations, but we want to make sure, and it gives the company a chance to double check on their procedures to make sure they meet the regulations. In addition to that, we also will test the products to make sure that what's on the label is what's in the bottle. So if you have an NSF, and this is NSF 173, I'll say content certified on the label. So what you can be assured of with that is that one, that let's take a vitamin A supplement, that if it's labeled to contain 5,000 IUs of vitamin A, we will have tested that claim to make sure that yes, that indeed is what they're putting in this product. But it goes beyond that too. So we're also looking at other things that could possibly impact a consumer that takes those. So we're making sure that it doesn't have the toxic metals such as lead and mercury. We're making sure that it doesn't have microorganism contamination like salmonella or E. coli. And there are a couple other contaminants that could be in there, like there's aspergillus, which is a fungus will release a byproduct that's hepatotoxic. That's called aflatoxins. We also test all products for that. And if the product contains botanical, a lot of those come out of China. So we do test those products to make sure they don't have any pesticides in them. Again, to support that the product is safer for people to consume. Then in addition to that, we also have a Certified for Sport program. So Certified for Sport has those two aspects that we talked about, but we also screen these supplements against a list of ingredients or substances that are prohibited for use in sport. I gave some examples earlier, anywhere from testosterone to amphetamine to, we have now research chemicals come out. So the pharmaceutical industry is always looking to create new drug substances that can impact human health in a positive way. So one of the specific classes I'm going to talk about are the SARMs. SARMs, it's an acronym for Selective Androgen Receptor Modulator. Now, the drug companies are developing these. They know there are a few indications that for these drugs would be beneficial. So, for instance, as the population ages in the U.S., a lot of folks become bedridden, can't move because they have comorbidities or diseases where they cannot move around a lot. Now, these SARMs could be very helpful and beneficial to those kinds of patients in that it helps them maintain muscle mass when they can't do a lot of exercise and can't move around. When you maintain that muscle mass, it allows you to stay healthier, older, for these older folks. But these also can be diverted for use by athletes in sport to build muscle mass that way, which would, in the sporting world, yeah, it does give the people an advantage. So against competitors that don't use those, you could see where the inequities lie. But also, imagine this, usually if a person is prescribed one of these, and let's be clear right now, there is not a single SARM on the market that can be prescribed. These are all either in clinical phase 3, which means they're being tested in large populations, or they're early on in the study. So there's nothing that's permitted for use, but yet they're showing up in supplements or as research chemicals. But let me get back to this. So also, if these are drugs, they really need to be used under the care of a physician, because there are different things that can occur, side effects that the physician can monitor to make sure that if they appear, that they can actually keep the consumer of that product safe. Now, if you're taking it as a supplement or you're buying it from Joe Steroid Shack or whatever on the internet, you're not going to have that protection. So who do you go to at that point in time? And if you're having these side effects, at some point in time, unless you go right away, you may be too late to help yourself.
And just as a revisit, so the companies will hire you to do the testing, or the government hires you? How does that process?
No, so yes, the companies actually volunteer to go through our certification process. There's no mandate by the government to do it. And the companies that participate in our programs are looking to demonstrate that they have these quality systems in place to develop a safer, efficacious product to their consumers.
So if a product has the NSF approval, you have been able to show that the manufacturing facility, meets the requirements. It doesn't contain anything that's a contaminated substance, and also no banned substances on the NSF certified for sport side.
Correct. That's exactly it. And,
so if someone wants to make sure that those are the only products they're taking, what do they need to look for?
So there are 3 things you can look for. So if it's a certified for sport or the content certified, you should see our mark on there. I do not have the contents tested, but I can when I show you this. So that's 1, look for it on the product. 2, you can go to nsfsport.com or nsf.org. And those 2 sites, you can navigate to our to our listings, which list all the products that would be certified by NSF. And then I'm going to put this up. We'll see how this turns out. So we also have a handy app. Now, I really love the app in that everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has a smartphone, it seems, these days. So you have access to all the certified for sport product lines that have been tested within this app. And it also has a handy feature that you can scan the barcode and immediately know if that product is NSF certified for sport. So it makes it really simple. That's what we've tried to do with this. Everyone can use it.
And we will send out information and show notes to everybody with information linking to NSF. So you all can use that going forward when you're looking to purchase supplements. And if you don't have the app, look for the NSF logo, which we'll also send out to everybody. Thank you so much for going over all of that, John. Leanne, I'm going to ask our last question of you. By sharing Michael's story with so many, including legislators, you have worked tirelessly to advocate, bring awareness and education about safer dietary supplements, and we thank you. What is one last thing that you would like to leave with everyone on the call?
Be your own advocate. research what you're taking, make sure that it's third-party certified, ask the hard questions. And if you're dealing with kids that really want to be on a supplement because they think it's going to be better, be the parent. You know, so many times I've heard from parents, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. They say it's good for them. All of their friends are taking it, but you don't know, it might not have affected their friend, but it could affect their child. So be the parent, be their advocate, look out for them, look out for yourselves, make sure it's third-party certified.
Thank you. And thank you, John and Leanne, for sharing your story and your knowledge with us. We really appreciate that. We do have some questions, so I'm going to turn that over to Brian because I believe we received some questions for our guests.
Yep. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, John and Leanne, for spending some time with us. I know that was a lot of great information, and thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. We got about 10 or 12 minutes left for our lunchtime break, so we do have a little bit of time for discussion and questions. I have the chat open, so don't hesitate to use it. Supplements can be very overwhelming. We educate on supplements every single day, and even for people like us, and as John mentioned, it's hard for us to keep up with all that is out there. So there are no bad questions when it comes to this. If you're curious about any kind of products, please throw that in the chat, and we'll get to it before we head out. I had a few questions that were sent in beforehand that I'll send over to our guests, and we'll start with those. First question will be for you, John. We're talking a lot about banned substances and products that are out there that get contaminated. From what you've seen, are there certain types of supplements that are more likely to contain a banned substance? So I guess look at it this way. Are there certain categories that might be a little bit more high risk than others?
Oh, I would say that is a definite. So we look at, there are three categories of supplements where consumers of those categories of supplements are generally more susceptible to take risks. So we have the folks that are looking to gain weight and build muscle, for instance. Users of those supplements tend to be engaged in a little bit more risky behavior, and those supplements tend to be, if they're operating in the gray area, the brands do, they're the ones that can contain anabolic steroids, SARMs, and things of that nature. We also have the weight loss products. There are a lot of folks that are desperate to lose weight, and if they've been trying to do it for years, at some point in time, they come to what they consider the end of their rope. So we have to try something drastic to lose weight. And they will go to these risky brands that can have things like sibutramine, which is Meridia, and other ingredients. Another ingredient that often turns up is phenolphthalein. So that's a mouthful of a ingredient. And if you were to look at that on a label, what would you think? Any non-chemist is like, I have no idea what this is. So phenolphthalein, for the listeners' information. So it has two purposes in the world of chemistry. One is it's an acid-base indicator. We use it. You can tell if you have vinegar or if you have a bicarbonate solution. So those are two different. That's one thing we use it for chemistry. And for the longest time, even me being a chemist, that's all I knew it was used for. Then at some point in time, I learned that it was in the USP monographs as a laxative. So for the longest time, and I don't remember when they took it out, but it was approved for use as a laxative. Due to safety reasons, it has since been removed from the monographs, and the FDA no longer allows it to be sold OTC as a laxative, but it still does turn up in supplements. And then the final category we'll talk about are the sexual enhancement products. Those products tend to be the kind that you can, like, you hear the stories, you go to the gas station, you're buying gas. If anyone ever goes inside the gas station anymore, I never do, but some people still do. They have like these little blister packs of supplements called, there's one of them I remember because we did some testing on it, and everyone, you get a chuckle on these names, Rock Hard Nights, things of that nature. They're really playing upon something, but there are some folks where this is an indication that they're very self-conscious of it. So they, instead of going to their doctor, they're more willing to buy it from their gas station attendant. I don't get that logic, but there's some folks that are like that. And those tend to have things like Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. So those PDE5 inhibitors for people who suffer from sexual dysfunction.
That makes sense. Yeah, I see a lot of issues come up with weight loss and weight gain products, and you know, there's a reason why those get spiked and contaminated more, because if you're taking something and looking to gain weight and they spike you with a steroid, well, you're going to gain weight.
Yeah.
You're going to think it's the product that's doing it when it's really something else at play. So I think those
Exactly.
categories are good for us all to know and be aware of. Next question, I'll probably throw this one to Tavis. So we're talking a lot about the industry as a whole and some of the issues at play. We haven't spent a ton of time talking about products specifically and categories specifically. One of the ones that I know you and I both get a lot of questions on, including today, is creatine. One of those really popular products that a lot of people take, maybe not even knowing what it is. And that, I speak from my own experience when I was a young athlete. So tell us a little bit more about creatine. You know, what is it? Is it safe? What's the purpose? And if I'm using it, what do I need to be looking for?
Yeah, creatine's got, there's a lot of misunderstandings about really what it is and the safety around it. It's made up of 3 amino acids. It's made up of methionine, arginine, and glycine. So most people know what amino acids are. You eat protein, you get amino acids. If you eat chicken, fish, beef, steak, pork, you're going to consume creatine. The body naturally produces creatine in the brain, the testes, so and in the muscle. That's where most of the creatine is going to lie, is in the muscle tissue. It's used for, high intensity training. So if you sprint, if you lift weights, if you do runs, play soccer, anything high intense, there's a purpose of why someone would maybe take creatine. Now, is creatine safe? Absolutely. Very safe. Anybody who says creatine isn't safe doesn't understand the science to support it. There's 60, probably 50,000 or more studies have looked at creatine. It's probably the one ingredient that has more scientific evidence than any other dietary supplement. And the majority doesn't even look at athletic performance. It looks at clinical populations, people with muscular dystrophy, kids with creatine inborn errors of metabolism, people with cancer, Lou Gehrig's disease. So there's an enormous amount of research on creatine. The misconceptions is it's bad for the liver and kidney. And studies looking at 2 years, Rick Kreider, his work out of A&M, have looked at long-term studies, and there's been no side effects on kidney and liver function when used correctly. We also have to make sure on the purity of creatine. The high-quality creatine comes from Germany. It's called CreaPure, made by Alzchem. At the end of the day, though, it has to be third-party tested. So there's a lot of bad players. But there's also 7 or 8 different types of creatine being used in supplements today. Monohydrate's still the gold standard. That's, no matter what people say, the research clearly shows it outperforms all other forms of creatine in the studies. There's HCl being marketed, there's pyruvate, there's magnesium, there's all different forms of creatine, ethyl ester, and they all have kind of the same function, but some companies are marketing them as better on the gut, faster absorbed, et cetera, and that's good marketing. But when we look at the science, if used correctly, and again, correctly, there's different scientists that say different things, but typically 1 scoop, 5 grams after a workout is typically what's recommended. There's a lot of research out of Darren Kandau's lab now, and Scott Forbes is looking at just creatine for other health, just for maintenance of health. There's a lot of benefits. Creatine's being used in concussion therapy right now because it helps with brain and cognitive function. So to me, I'd rather see a young athlete take creatine than eat fast food. Why? Because they're doing more damage to their body eating poor quality foods than they are probably taking something that can be very helpful. It's just, again, you go back to what Leanne said and what John said. You have people in this industry that don't understand the science, and they're recommending the wrong types of products. So it can be used. It's not a magic pill. Kids taking it today that are trying to gain weight, most of them are underfueled and not eating enough calories. So it doesn't matter what they're going to take. They're not going to see any benefit from creatine if they're eating 2,000 calories a day and burning 4,000 calories a day. We have to have a good diet first. And then as part of a good diet and training program, it can be something that can be used to maybe help a little bit, but you're not going to get any major acute effects right away from using creatine unless you have other good things happening in the body.
Yeah, creatine, I think that's a good example of what we said at the beginning of us not being an anti-supplement talk. That's just one of the products that has a time and a place and a function, but we have to know that background information that we discussed today on, knowing what it is, knowing the source, knowing that it's certified, and doing it the right way. And I think that background gives us a little bit more information. One more question for you, John, while we got a few more minutes. We're talking a lot about purchasing supplements, and I know using the app is super helpful, but let's say we're just walking into a store, looking at bottles on a shelf, right? What are some red flags, right? Let's say like I see a claim here, or this says it can do that. What are some things that I can easily see when I'm shopping that might say, hold up here, maybe something's off?
Oh, I mean, first, let's go back to the category. So if you're going in there to look at weight loss products, instinctually, you have to know that, yeah, this is one of the most adulterated categories of products on the market. And same thing with the sexual enhancement, same thing with the muscle building ones. Those are the propensity to be adulterated. Outside of the certified products, sticking with some of the national brands is probably your safest bet. But even then, so in today's world, with COVID and there's a big strain on the supply chain for the supplement industry. I've spoken with some folks that are actually really getting pinched in the supplement industry, trying to find alternative suppliers. And that actually, to me, is a frightening notion that even brands that could potentially be NSF certified, are having to find alternate suppliers. So they're having to go through requalify their suppliers. Now imagine this: we have brands that don't engage in this kind of activity that they're certified, and they're really conscious about the product line. They're buying ingredients from anywhere. So stick with the national brands, and better yet, any of the certified product. I mean, of course, I work for NSF, so I'm going to support that, but our competitors have certified products out there as well.
Yeah, I know one of the big ones that I've learned just from talking to people like you is if it claims it can cure any kind of disease, let's steer clear of that, right? If you're buying something off the shelf that tells you it's going to get rid of COVID for you, I don't know that I'd be buying that one, right?
Right. And another thing that, just by you saying that, off the shelf, I mean, I'm old enough where I had gone into GNC, so I've gone into the grocery stores, gone into the pharmacies, and bought stuff off the shelf. But I mean, I think that's probably the minority of purchases right now. If you purchase things on the internet, everything looks good.
Yeah,
it's very easy to make a very slick looking website and get it out there, but not really have any substance behind that website. So if you're buying things on the internet, you should even exhibit more caution. Dig into that. If you folks have questions about products, I hate to do this, but because it's going to work on my part, but you could send a question to me at NSF, and I can see if we can help out. It's like, hey, if you have a question about an ingredient, we can see what we can do to tell you a small amount of information about that. What we know, we have some pretty sharp people here.
Yeah, I think that's great. And any other questions about products specifically, we got a couple more minutes. You can put them in the chat. I just have one more, and it's not really a question. It's more just of a statement for Leanne. And I know Sarah said it in the chat. I had someone else send it to me, but Leanne, just thank you for sharing that. I know how moving that was for all of us. I've worked with the foundation for 10 years, and I've told Taylor's story countless times, and I admire their bravery from the family of being able to do this from day one. And I admire the same thing in you. So thanks for sharing that. I know that's never easy, but I know it's also really helpful in times like this for everybody that was here.
Thank you.
That's what I have for questions that were sent in. Obviously, we're all here and we'll hang out as long as needed. If you got more questions in the chat, please send them to us. If not, thank you all for hanging out. I'll send it over back to Amy to wrap us up.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you to our panelists for answering all of those great questions that we got from our audience. Just again, want to say thank you to all of our attendees. As a reminder, this will be recorded, so if you feel this information was helpful and you'd like to, share it, we'd love to have you do that. It will be on our YouTube channel. We'll also be sending out all of the resources that we covered to each of you, and we'd love to invite you to our next Power Lunch, which will be on May 19th. A very special guest, the co-founder of the Taylor Hooton Foundation, Gwen Hooton, will be sharing the story from a mom's perspective. So we look forward to hearing from Gwen next month. If you'd like any additional information, please visit our website, taylorhooton.org. It has all kinds of fantastic resources if you want to talk to your kids or your classroom. Also, we have our podcast, which is our All Me podcast. If you just search Taylor Hooton in your podcast platform, you'll pull up lots of great information with episodes, lots of great content. But again, we just want to thank you all for joining us, and we wish you a great rest of your day.